decided to speak about, again, success, but success using our talents, okay? Because we all know what our gifts are. Remember we were talking about the gifts of the Spirit, right? And so we know what that is, and we can say, okay, we're a giver, or we have the gift of mercy, or, you know, prophecy, and all those gifts, right? But we also have talents, right? For instance, one of my talents is reading people, right? I have a very good gift at that. And then there's other people who, we have physical talents, we have mental talents, and we have emotional talents. And what we are good at with our talents is what we're supposed to bring forth. We work on our talents to become successful. Dawn, you're a personal support care worker. And obviously one of your talents is taking care of people, right? So that goes hand in hand. That's why you're so good at what you do. That's why you are in a position of doing a higher position than maybe some of the people, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why, because you have taken your talents, you put them to your career, and that's exactly what we have to do. My son, he told me he wants to own a restaurant, and that's what he wants to do with his future. Of course, I want him to be a doctor. I want him to be a lawyer. I want him to be something else. But I realize that these days we can go and do something right up until age 40, 50, and then change, right? Because I even heard the other day that the old age pension is now changed up to 60. Yeah! Isn't that something, right? Because the government, not only because the government is becoming more broke, but the government realizes now that people at that age is not an old age, right? Mm-hmm. So someone can have a career for 40 years and then go and do something totally off, because a lot of people are going out of retirement once they're in retirement, right? So they're 64, they go in early retirement, retirement, and then they start a business doing things that they always loved, right? And then all of a sudden they're really living. And they can do that for another 20 years and be happier during that 20 years from 64 to 84, happier than they ever were between the other years that they were working at that job, right? So when my son said that he wants to open this restaurant, I said, okay, all right, that's what you're going to go to school for? He's like, yeah, George Brown College, right down, right down the street. They got a good culinary program. And I'm like, okay. He says, Mom, you know what? I just really want you to go down to Chinatown, give me one of them real good knives. I'll cook you a meal. So I did, and I'm supporting him. I went all the way down to Chinatown, and I went from store to store. I was talking to you on the phone then. It went from store to store. On the phone, and I'm like going from store to store looking for these knives. Finally, I get into the store and I find a knife, and then I start getting excited for him. Because I'm like, there's so many different knives, and there's so many tricks to the trade, and there's knives to cut vegetables with, and you know, so I get home, I show him the knives, and it inspired this boy so much to do something so much more with his future. And I'm like, go ahead and you do it. Go to school, spend that money, and get that education on cooking, and do whatever you want to do. Open that restaurant and become a business owner. Look at me, I'm a business owner, right? I know a lot about health, right? And when I get to sitting and talking with my doctor, she even said to me on the phone the other day, you seem to know a lot about health, right? Well, I did a lot of studying on YouTube, right? So these are the things where we have to use our talents. And if my son feels like he's talented at cooking, which he is, he really is. He made me some jerk chicken, and I don't even eat chicken, but he made me some jerk chicken in the summertime. I took the sauce that he left over, and I put it on fish. Beautiful. I was surprised. And this boy did it from scratch, the jerk sauce. Okay, so he's building upon his talents. And I think, you know, it's really important for us to figure out our talents, build upon them. Now, and that's how we do become successful, right? So how do we know our talents? We know them from when we're children. I feel that it's really important to focus on what you know your talent is, what your child inside tells you. Even if there was nothing that your child inside told you it wanted to do when it was a child, if that child inside of you right now is speaking and saying, do this, then do it, no matter what it is. You with your crafts, is it? Right, that child inside of you is saying, I want to create. So you have to listen to it, and then all of a sudden you start selling one craft, 2 crafts, 3 crafts. What kind of crafts do you make, by the way?
I do jewelry.
Jewelry.
Earrings, necklaces, bracelets.
Beautiful. You see, and I used to do that as well. I feel that that is one of the best businesses out there, right? It's a business that never dies. Everyone always uses jewelry, right? And actually, I just found out that I've been spelling it wrong for many years.
What's that?
Jewelry. It's not spelled jewelry. It's spelled jewelry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's L-R-Y. Yeah, and then I looked it up on the internet, and everyone spells it wrong. They spell jewelry. Anyway, that's just off topic. But so yes, this is what you do. You build upon what you are good at and what you enjoy, right? And so, like for instance, I'll give you guys an example. I used to read people ever since I was younger. Right, all the time when I was a little girl, I would go up to people and I would even read my teachers in school and say, "Are you going on a date tonight?" Right? And my teacher would be like, "Yeah, why? How do you know?" Right? And she wasn't dressed up any different. It's not like she had her outfit on. I just felt something around her. Right? So I noticed that throughout the years, I could really read people. My dad was a reader. My dad's mother was a reader. And so it was just something in my blood, something that I was raised with. And then I decided I was going to start making jewelry, and then I said I wanted to make jewelry plus get into the oils, aromatherapy and everything, because I liked a lot of aromatherapy. So I started to make candles, and I can till this day still make the best scented candle. So I got the oils, and I was ordering them from the States and from a place called Heaven Scent Fragrances in New Jersey, and then I got the wax, and I was ordering that from Vancouver, and I was going to the dollar store and getting molds, and my kitchen looked like it was just a wax-filled kitchen. We weren't even hardly cooking in there for a good few months. Then I started to sell the products to Shoppers Drug Mart, and my business was named Body and Mind Discoveries. Okay, so I got a good contract with them, and then I was like, well, I'm like, you know what? I think I have a business idea going on here. Then all of a sudden, I'm going to start selling this in the flea markets, because at Shoppers Drug Mart I was selling to them wholesale, right? And I wasn't really making the price that I knew I could make, the profit that I knew I could make. They were something that would cost me $3 to make. I was selling to them for $7, so I was making double my money, but they were selling for $14. And I was like, well, they can sell it for $14. I can sell it for $12, right? Which I did. So I went into the flea market, Dr. Flea's, all the way out in the West End. At this point, I lived in Scarborough, right? So I would drive all the way out. 6 o'clock in the morning I had to be there for, and I had my whole trunk all packed up. But what happened was I'd drive all the way out to the West End, 6 o'clock in the morning, had to be there. And if you weren't there for 6 o'clock in the morning, you'd be in trouble and stuff like that, business owner, right? And that's what they would do to you, treat you like you were in high school. So what happened was, you know, I started to sell these oils. And I would make my dollar, but the thing is, you're a vendor and you're in a booth. So people walk up and down the aisle, and there's so many other vendors that they have to visit, and there's so many unique booths and then people have only so much money. By the time they were getting to my booth, maybe they spent all their money 4 aisles over, right? So I had to work with that somehow and move it in. So what did I do? I put a little sign up saying free readings, right? And then all of a sudden, people started to come, and they were like, oh, free readings, and they'd be like, what kind of readings do you do? And I tell them what kind of readings I do, and then they'd sit down. They started to enjoy my readings to the point where they were coming every week for their free readings, and what would they do? Buy a candle, because they'd feel so guilty. And they wouldn't only buy a candle, they would start to, as they're waiting for me to read someone else, they would look around at the rest of the products. So then I started to move big stuff that I was buying, like diffusers, candle burners and stuff, I was buying for like $3, and I was selling for like $27, right? And I was paying my rent at the flea market like that, and everything was going good. But then I said to myself, my gosh, I'm spending money on rent. I'm waking up on Saturdays to be there for 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting supplies sent from New Jersey, supplies sent from Vancouver, running all around the dollar stores looking for containers. What am I doing when my readings are the ones that's bringing in the money, right? If it wasn't me doing readings, no one would be even coming in my booth. Okay, yeah, I had a nice scent coming out of from my candles burning out, and people would walk by and say, it smells nice, and stuff like that. But if it wasn't for my free readings, I would not have had the business that I had. So I said, forget this, no more supplies. If I'm doing readings, I don't have to buy supplies, right? So what did I do? I got a proposal together. And I said, well, I was doing my exercises one day on the floor, and God said to me, I was just doing some sit-ups, right? And God said to me, child, call Flow 93.5 right now. Tell them you have a good show idea. So I said, oh, okay. Flow 93.5 was just a radio station that I would listen to, right? So I called up, and Hollywood Rich Vagan answered the phone. It was the hotline, right? And he's like, Hollywood Rich Vagan, how you doing? This is the Urban Suite, right? And I said, hi, my name's Cerise, and I have a good show idea. And he's like, oh, you do ya? Well, you're going to have to call the program director. He's brand new. He's only been here for 2 weeks now. So I was like, oh, okay. So I called the front desk and got a hold of the program director. And I knew he was brand new, and he's from the States at the time. So they're used to psychics being on the radio from the States. In Toronto, you didn't really hear of readers being on the radio back then, like 10 years ago and stuff like that, right? So he answers the phone, and I said, hi, I have a good show idea. And he's like, well, what's that? And I said, well, let me give you a taste. And he's like, okay. And I said, well, when's your birthday? And already I was picking up on him before he even said it. The only reason why I ask people their birthdays usually is because it calms them down. They get personal all of a sudden, right? And so they're not giving away their social insurance number. They're not giving away anything private. Anyone could share the same birthday as them, right? So he gave me his birthday, and right away I started to read him. He was like, wow, you must be fun at a party. And I said, well, yeah, are you interested? And he was like, send me a proposal. I never wrote a proposal in my life before that. I didn't even know what a proposal was. Okay, so what did I do? I wrote it in like essay form. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. I wrote who I am, what I plan to propose to them, how I'm going to do it, and why, right? And he got the proposal. He called me up a week later, and he said, all right, so we're going to put you in the morning rush. Are you ready? Never on the radio before this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on the radio. And everything took off from there, right? And I was like, wow. A few weeks before I went on the radio, a client said to me, not a client, a friend, who then became a client, a friend said to me, so you're going to go on the radio, like you don't even know how to read tarot cards. And I said, but I don't use tarot cards anyway. I don't do my readings with tarot cards. She says, but all professionals use tarot cards. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll have to learn. So 2 weeks before, so I was supposed to start the week after that, the week after he contacted me, but something came up and I couldn't start. And so I started weeks after that. It was October 18th, I remember that I had started. So 2 weeks before I went on the radio, I learned how to do tarot cards. Get that. And I wasn't even reading them. People call in and I'd just be flipping them to look good in front of Market Gemini and all that. And I was reading the people from my heart, from the Spirit of God, from what God was, telling me. And when you are in line with your talents and the things you're good at in life, it's when you are aligned with God. Because a lot of the times we don't even know what we're good at until we are one with God, right? So God's talking to me about each person on the radio, calling, and I'm answering them. And sometimes I even forgot about the cards. But then I started to I had to get an office all of a sudden. Weeks after that, people were leaving me emails. They were calling me up because they wanted to come in for sessions. And I was like, oh, I need an office. I went and I got an office. Long story short, when the people came in for a session, I felt like I had to have the cards there and the stones there and things to make me look like I know what I'm doing as a reader. And then 2 years ago, God said to me, through a friend actually, the friend said, why do you use tarot cards with your clients, but yet you don't use them on yourself or at home or with your family and your friends, and like, keep it real with your clients too, right? Like, you don't need cards. Well, why do you flip them? And right, but I guess I was flipping them at that point. 2 years ago, I was using them then, and I was starting to read them because at that point I was using them for about a good 8 years. So they became a part of my reading, and they actually, like my tablet was part of my speaking, right? The cards became a part of my reading. I flip them sometimes and not even read them, but just flip. But I was reading them after a while. Then I started to notice that some of my clients started to read cards. And then I'd say, why are you guys reading cards? And I couldn't figure it out. And then some of my clients started to get really interested in cards. And then I started to realize that I'm being an influence on these people with cards instead of their natural talent and ability. If they're good at reading people, they can do that from here. They don't need a card to do that, right? So God told me, put them things away. Throw them in the garbage. I threw them down the incinerator quick. So this was like almost 2 years ago, and I don't use codes any longer. They were just props most of the time, right? And so I got rid of them, and I don't use them any longer. And I had a client that said to me, she said to me, Cerise, I noticed you're not using cards. And I said, no, I don't use cards any longer. She's like, oh, I miss the cards. Well, what do you pick up? And I'm like, I've been picking up everything the whole time. What do you mean, what do I pick up? And she's like, oh, I didn't know that. You do the readings? And I'm like, girl, what are you coming to me paying me that money for? If you think the cards are doing it, you can just go pick up a book and go do it yourself, right? And so it showed me how all these different things that you can, the talent has to come from within. Right? All these different things you can go and do and everything. If you don't gut it, you don't gut it. It's like almost like a card player. There's people who go and they play cards and they're gamblers and they lose all their money. And then there's people that can be poker players and they can make thousands and hundreds of thousands and become millionaires. And it's because they got something. They got an eye for something. I think it's mathematics. Right? They can tell which numbers, which cards have already been played, and they have that mathematical, scientific mind where they're like, okay, that many jacks been played, and then so that means this person must have that in their hand, or someone's got the ace, right? And they can do that, right? And that's their gift. So there are gifts that are of emotional nature, which I believe my gift is an emotional thing. I help people with their emotions. And then there's the creative gifts and everything. I just came up with a new business idea the other day, which I registered the domain name last night, like 1 o'clock in the morning. And the reason why I texted you at like 1:30, I think it was, to respond to you,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, why is she not answering?
And so I was up at that time, and you know, I have this new business idea, and it has to do with my dog, right? And I love my dog, and I feel like this is something that could take off. So what we have to do is we have to listen to our inner consciousness. We have to listen to that voice, the God, and we have to say, I'm good at that. I'm going to build upon it. There's this part of the Bible, excuse me, and I can't read it to you guys right now. I don't know it exactly off the top of my head, but it's Ecclesiastes, and it's 3:22. And what it is it says, a man is most happiest when they are achieving doing their portion, okay? Meaning that they're using their talent and they are achieving something from using their talent. And that's when they're most happiest, right? So they're not most happiest when they have a whole bunch of money. Money can buy a certain amount of happiness, I will agree. I do think money can buy temporary happiness, right? But if you have bad health or something, money can't buy anything, right? But when it comes to talents, that is when somebody is most happiest, when they put something forward, they work on it, and they achieve something. That is when people feel like they are at their best. Believe that? Right? Like, and if we really look at our past and everything, and we look, achievements are usually something that always make us happy. Like, when was the last time you heard somebody say, oh yeah, I achieved that, God, I don't feel real great about it. Like, it's never like that. They're always like, I feel good about that. Like, I did that, right? And they always feel good about something that even they did for someone else with their talent, right? So not only can you make yourself happy with talents, you can make other people happy with talents, right? So I would encourage all you guys this week here, just look at what you're talented at, no matter if it's something physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, no matter what it is, build upon it. Write it down and say, I am good at, and then look at different ways and how you can bring that about, right? So that basically is building upon our talents and doing it throughout the week. Next week, what I'm going to be talking about is something called the Daniel diet. Okay, we're going to be talking about the health aspect next week, because we're coming into 2013. It's the year of balance, gaining balance, right? 2 + 3 and 1 is 6. 6 represents balance. It represents like 6 legs on a table, which is like a feast for happiness and beauty and peace, right? So we should come into the new year strong. And not just the new year, but the whole entire year. Try to keep up with the Daniel diet. Now, what the Daniel diet is, it is a feast. I mean, sorry, a fast. Totally different than a feast. But what it is it's a fast. Now, it's not a complete fast. It's a semi-fast. So what you do is you take away certain foods, right? So, say it.
Pasta, like carbs and stuff.
You got it. That's right. So not too many carbs, not too many meats, stuff like that. And if you are going to say that again?
I was just going to say it's like something my nonna did. It's like a carb diet, like so you don't eat a lot of carbs or meats. Yeah, it's like an Atkins diet or whatever.
A what diet?
It's called the Atkins diet. It's
Atkins diet.
you eat, but with Atkins diet you
have
cut
to
out
eat
all
a
the
certain
carbs.
amount. You have to only eat like a certain amount of calories
and
or something a
veggies.
day.
See, carbs are okay if you are going to be using the energy within 2 hours. If you eat carbs and then you don't use the energy that it offers within 2 hours, it turns to fat, right? So complex carbs are pastas. Simple carbs are like apples and stuff. So simple carbs are really good to eat, right? But the complex carbs are the ones I'm pretty sure you were referring to because you said pasta. And so those are good to eat if you are going to be walking or working. So it's good to have pasta in the afternoon or something, not for dinner. So the Daniel diet is when you're cutting out a lot of high-fat foods, a lot of meats, and a lot of things that you know are not healthy. Like for me, I'm going to have to cut out the cookies. The chocolate, I don't know. I'm trying to reason with it. I'm like, come on, God, it has milk in it. And I need more calcium because I don't get calcium. But all in all, drink, when it comes to drink. I also have to cut out the coffee with the Daniel diet. So the other day I was like beginning the fast and I was craving for a coffee and I was like, well, I don't want to drink water all day, Father, right? And he's like, well, you got your juice, right? So that's why I started to bring this to class again today. As you guys can see, I got my green stuff again because even though I had a coffee, I'm still throwing myself into bringing the juice with me again, right? And so the Daniel diet, what it is for as well is it prepares us for spiritual encouragement, spiritual deepening, right? And the reason why is because a lot of people ask me, Cerise, how can I become more enlightened? Well, it starts with character and what we eat, really, right? Because certain foods hold us down, right? So I would say for next week, everyone bring in a recipe. You don't have to, but bring in, like, even if it's just like a fruit salad, or not bring in the food, just write down the recipe, right? Even if you find a good health recipe on the internet, right? Because it's really important. The health of the body helps with the health of the mind, and then the health of the spirit, right? And I'm not saying that we all need to go on diets. It's not a diet that I'm talking about. I'm talking about fasting, so getting rid of certain foods that are not good for the health.
I know, like, if you're like a vegan or vegetarian, it helps with cancer. My friend's like family friend in Serbia had cancer, so then her parents are like vegan, so then they told the person's family to start feeding the person like a vegan, so they don't eat like any of like GMO foods and stuff like that.
Right.
And then the person like didn't get cancer anymore. Like
It was cured.
Yeah, it got cured.
A plant-based food. That's right. I truly believe in that. And you know, GMO, genetically modified foods, you know what that is. I went to Loblaws. I don't know if I told you guys the story. I went to Loblaws, vegetarian, right? So I'm like, I was craving oranges that day, right? And I'm like, God, you know, I'm going to go get oranges. And I felt a cold coming on. So I said, I'm going to go get oranges, and I'm going to not take the vitamin C pill, right? I'm going to take the little seed out of the orange and eat that and use that as a pill. And it's probably like a good dose of vitamin C, right? It's the seed of the whole orange. So why wouldn't it be a good vitamin C dose? So I get to Loblaws and I pick out my oranges and I get home and I slice open the orange. No seeds. I said, what? Who? Open up another orange, no seeds. And I was like, there's no seeds in my fruit. And so I went online and did a little research and, you know, why is there no seeds? And they don't have to ask us for permission to genetically modify our food. It's just genetically modified.
They do that with cows too, like, and like pigs and stuff. They don't feed it like the normal food they're supposed to eat. They give them like other food.
To make them grow faster.
Yeah, to make them grow fast so they can like kill them faster.
And then that goes, because if we get protein from their meat, then obviously we are getting that same steroid,
And we're
right?
also getting sick from that as well because like they're not eating how they're supposed to be, like naturally eating. They're eating like disgusting stuff.
And that's how we become allergic to foods more
Yeah,
so, because we never had this problem. But now all of a sudden we realize that we're having all these allergies and
Right.
skin rash and
An increase of mental illness in society. I bet you if they were to do a study on people who are mentally ill, most of them are probably a lot of meat eaters. Because us vegetarians, you know, we don't have, no. But seriously, I would say that it probably does do something to the chemistry of the mind, right? The brain, the chemistry of the brain. That's right. So genetically modified foods, we do not even know we're eating every single day. I buy all my fruits now from Asian markets because I get my seeds inside of those fruits, right? So that's what we're going to be talking more about next week as well, and anything like that. So again, bring in some recipes and anything you find on the internet. It could be even like a dish or just something fast we can throw together. Okay, so now let's take a break so you guys can have some fruits and stuff.